Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it? Today we are jumping into a massive, comprehensive deep dive on a place that went from a sleepy fishing island to an absolute global phenomenon almost overnight.
Yeah, and we are going to look at the brutal, honest, logistics-first reality of traveling there in 2026.
Right, because we have got a ton of sources, price guides, and on-the-ground reports, and the mission of this deep dive is to completely cut through all the travel influencer gloss.
Exactly. The aesthetic Instagram filters don't show you the massive price disparities or, the hidden economic traps at the ferry port.
Or the very narrow windows of time where the place is actually enjoyable. So we are going to cover everything: how to get there, where to sleep, what to eat, the safety risks, and finally give you our honest verdict on whether it is actually worth your time and money.
It is a lot of ground to cover.
It really is. But I want to start by talking about how this place exploded. Because, it's funny how modern travel history gets written now.
It's totally digital.
Yeah, it's not like intrepid explorers hacking through the brush anymore, or cartographers drawing lines on a map. It's literally just the infinite, mesmerizing scroll of a smartphone screen.
Just algorithms and engagement.
Right. So picture this scenario, because it has probably happened to you, the listener. You are just scrolling through your feed, minding your own business, and suddenly a photo stops you dead in your tracks.
You know the exact kind of photo.
Oh, absolutely. The water in the image is this impossible, almost glowing shade of emerald green. And jutting violently out of this water are these massive, ancient, towering limestone pillars.
Just draped in this thick, heavy jungle foliage.
Right, like it looks entirely alien, like a matte painting from a sci-fi movie. And then you look at the caption, it's a post from Leonardo DiCaprio.
Of all people.
Yes. And he is calling this place paradise.
And that right there is the moment the digital tectonic plates shift. I mean, a single post from a massive cultural figure like that, it doesn't just get likes. It acts as a complete behavioral catalyst.
It totally changes real-world travel patterns.
Exactly. Our sources show that the search traffic for this previously quiet, slightly rugged corner of Vietnam absolutely surged within hours of that image going live.
The algorithmic weight of that one word, paradise, just fundamentally altered the trajectory of the island.
And we are talking, of course, about Cat Ba Island.
Cat Ba Island. Almost overnight, on all the booking platforms, it rocketed to become one of the most searched destinations in all of Vietnam by international tourists.
The numbers are staggering. In just the first 2 months of 2025 alone, it welcomed nearly 300,000 visitors.
Which is insane for an island that size. A quiet place with, a modest fishing industry and a trickle of backpackers was suddenly thrust into this massive, glaring global spotlight.
But there's a massive problem with that kind of viral spotlight.
Oh, yeah. It paints a very, very thick layer of gloss over the reality.
Because a massive influx of, 4.5 million people is about to basically pave over paradise.
And if you don't know exactly what weeks to go or, how the local microeconomy operates on the ground, you're going to get trapped in a deeply frustrating experience.
Which is exactly why we need to cut through that gloss today. We're relying on a comprehensive 2026 travel and value guide. And this guide does not care about aesthetic drone shots.
No, it cares about the brutal logistics. It cares about exactly how many dollars you're going to spend and what traps you're going to fall into.
Right. So before we even get into the weeds of how you physically get to Cat Ba or the mechanics of avoiding those tourist traps, we have to understand what there actually is geographically.
Yeah, because I think there is this huge misconception out there that Cat Ba is some sort of secondary, inferior alternative to its massively famous neighbor, Ha Bay.
People think of them as completely separate things.
Exactly. You read travel blogs, and they still treat them like two completely different worlds. Like Ha Bay is the real deal, and Cat Ba is the knockoff.
But the geography tells a completely different story. Cat Ba is not a separate destination. Geologically and administratively, it is part of the exact same UNESCO World Heritage Site.
It's a joint listing, right?
It is. The joint Ha Long Cat Ba listing covers both zones. I mean, it is the exact same rock. It is the same tectonic history that created those towering limestone karsts dissolving in ancient acidic rains.
Same deep emerald water.
Yeah.
Same floating fishing villages. The scenery is literally a mirror image.
The only real difference is the economics and the crowd density. And the numbers, the sources regarding that difference are genuinely hard to wrap my head around.
Let's get into those numbers.
Yeah.
Because if you want to do a standard, 3-day cruise in the famous Ha Long Bay, you are looking at spending anywhere from $200 to $600.
Depending on how much mahogany and brass you want in your cabin.
Exactly. It's a highly polished premium product.
It is. Now, contrast that with Lan Ha Bay. Lan Ha Bay is the body of water that is immediately accessible right from Cat Bay Island. A full-day boat tour of Lan Ha Bay, navigating the exact same geological wonders, costs between $16 and $32.
I just want to pause on that for a second. $16.
Yeah, 16.
For an entire day out on a boat in a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That is wild.
The price disparity is vast. But honestly, the price is actually the less important metric here.
Really? What's the more important one?
The crucial data point is the density. Lan Ha Bay has 40 times fewer vessels on the water on any given day than Ha Long Bay.
Wait, 40 times fewer?
40 times fewer.
I was trying to conceptualize this earlier because 40 is a huge multiplier. It's like paying $500 for VIP tickets to a massive sold-out stadium show.
Right.
You have a great seat, sure, but you are packed in with thousands of other people. You're dealing with traffic. You're waiting in an endless line for a terrible beer.
Yeah, it's chaos.
Versus paying $20 to watch the exact same band play a stripped-down acoustic set in a quiet, private courtyard with a dozen other people.
That acoustic set analogy captures the auditory reality of this perfectly. Because 40 times fewer boats doesn't just mean you have fewer people in your background photos.
Right, it's about the sound.
It means 40 times fewer heavy diesel engines churning up the water and dropping massive anchors into the bay floor.
So the water is actually cleaner.
The water in Lan Ha Bay is visibly cleaner, but more importantly, the silence you experience when your tour boat actually cuts its engine.
Oh, I bet that's incredible.
It is actual profound silence. It is just the sound of water lapping against ancient stone, not just, a momentary lull in the industrial noise of 100 cruise ships jostling for position.
That sounds absolutely magical.
Yeah.
But the clock on that profound silence is ticking incredibly loudly right now.
Yeah, it is. This isn't a secret that is going to stay buried for much longer.
No way. The authorities in Haiphong, which is the mainland city that actually governs the island, they have looked at the spreadsheet and realized the gold mine they are sitting on.
Oh, of course they have.
For 2026, they have set an official target of 4.75 million total visitors to Cat Bay.
4.75 million. When a local government sets a quota that high for a fragile island environment, the foundational economics shift immediately.
They have to.
We are already seeing the leading edge of this right now. The entrance fees to Cat Bay's bays were recently doubled.
Double. So what is it now?
An adult day visit, simply to enter the water, now costs 120,000 Vietnamese dong.
Which is roughly $5 US.
Yeah, and the overnight stay fees on the water have jumped to between 400,000 and 650,000 dong, depending on the duration.
I mean, $5 might sound pretty trivial to a Western ear. You spend that on a bad coffee. But economically, in Vietnam, is a clear flare going up.
It's a huge signal. The era of the forgotten bottom dollar backpacker haven is ending.
The concrete trucks are rolling in, the fees are doubling, and the island is just rapidly rushing to build the infrastructure required to hold nearly 5 million people.
Which means the value and the quiet, they still exist, but they are hiding. You have to be incredibly strategic now.
So timing your visit is no longer just a matter of checking a weather app. It is a defensive maneuver.
Absolutely. The 2026 data points to 3 distinct seasonal windows and one massive flashing red light of a season that operates essentially as a trap for the uninformed traveler.
Let's break those down. What is the absolute best time to go?
The ideal window, the absolute peak of conditions, is the spring, specifically from March to May.
Okay, spring. Why then?
The temperatures sit in this highly comfortable sweet spot right between 20 and 27 degrees Celsius.
Which is perfect because you aren't shivering out on the deck of a boat, but you also aren't, melting into the pavement.
Exactly. And the seas are completely calm, so the underwater visibility for snorkeling is crystal clear.
And I imagine the crowds aren't quite at their peak yet.
You are catching the island at its most relaxed pace, operating in this lovely lull before the massive waves of summer arrivals hit. The sources really highlight April as the peak of this perfection.
April is the golden month.
It is warm, it is dry, and the heavy, noisy construction pushes haven't quite reached their manic summer intensity yet.
But, and this is crucial, there's a massive tripwire hidden right at the end of April.
Oh, the National Holiday Week.
Yes. If you don't look at a calendar, this will ruin your trip.
Vietnam has a major cluster of public holidays right at the end of April and the very beginning of May. If you stumble into that specific week blindly, you will face a totally different island.
The prices just explode, right?
Accommodation prices across Cat Ba spike by 50 to 80% overnight.
80%.
And those serene $16 Lan Ha Bay boat tours we talked about, they book out completely, often 2 full weeks in advance.
The lesson there is just so clear. Look at a Vietnamese calendar, identify that holiday week, and physically shift your flight dates 7 days to either side of it.
It's a mandatory adjustment.
But what if you, the listener, are locked into a different time of year? Say you can't go in spring. Autumn seems to be the secret backdoor, according to the sources.
It really is. September through November is highly underrated. And the psychology of Western travel plays a big role in this.
How so?
Well, most international travelers are anchored to their own domestic summer vacation schedules, July and August. By the time September rolls around, the massive crowds drop off sharply.
Because everyone goes back to school and work.
Exactly. And you see accommodation prices fall 30 to 40% from their summer peaks.
That's a huge discount. And the physical environment is still incredibly forgiving in the autumn. The ocean has spent the last 4 months baking under the tropical sun, so the water stays beautifully warm right through October.
Even as the air temperature starts to cool down slightly, the water is like a bath.
Sounds amazing. Now, contrast that with the deep winter, January and February.
Oh, winter in northern Vietnam is genuinely challenging.
People forget that northern Vietnam actually gets cold.
It experiences a real winter. It gets bone-chillingly damp, the skies lock into this notoriously gray overcast, and the seas become rough and unpredictable.
Yeah, the bays are at their absolute least photogenic when they are smothered in a thick, damp mist. Everything just looks gray and flat.
Many of the budget boat operators just shut down entirely during those months because the demand isn't there and the conditions are miserable.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room, the summer trap.
June to August.
I really want to push back on this a little bit because summer is when almost everyone, especially families with kids in school, actually has the time off to travel.
Sure, it's the most common time off.
If someone is planning a massive, once-in-a-lifetime trip to Southeast Asia, and July is literally the only month they can go, is there any redeeming quality here? Or is it just awful?
Honestly, if you're prioritizing logistics, comfort, and value, it is a near total write-off for international travelers.
Wow, a total write-off.
The mechanics of the summer season on Cat Ba are brutal. June, July, and August represent the core of the domestic Vietnamese summer holiday season.
Ah, so it's local tourism that drives it.
Exactly. The vast majority of that 4.75 million visitor target is arriving in a tight 90-day window.
So the island is basically operating at maximum capacity.
Beyond maximum capacity. First, you have the physical environment to deal with. The heat sits relentlessly above 35 degrees Celsius.
Which is like, what, 95 degrees Fahrenheit?
Yes, and it's accompanied by a suffocating humidity that literally feels like breathing hot soup.
Breathing hot soup. Gross.
Second, because the demand vastly outstrips the supply, the prices for absolutely everything, from beds to boats to bowls of needles, they double or triple.
You are paying a massive premium just for the privilege of sweating profusely while packed shoulder to shoulder with thousands of other tourists.
And you lose all spontaneity. Tours sell out days in advance. Furthermore, because the island is in a panicked rush to build more hotels to house these specific crowds, the construction noise around Cat Ba Town reaches a fever pitch.
Because they have to build fast.
We are talking about heavy machinery and jackhammers firing up before 7 a.m. right outside your hotel window.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. But it gets worse with the weather, right? August is storm season.
Starting in August, the region enters its high probability window for tropical storms. And if a storm system moves in, the Port Authority rightly grounds all vessels.
For safety.
Right. So your long-awaited boat tour gets canceled, and the standard operating procedure for most mid-range and budget tour operators is a strict zero cash refund policy.
Wait, they don't give you your money back?
No cash refunds.
So let me get this straight. You are trapped in a hotel room that you paid triple the normal rate for, listening to an excavator operate in the pouring rain, holding a useless tour voucher, and you can't even look at the water.
That is the reality of the summer trap.
The picture is crystal clear. Avoid the summer. So let's assume you, the listener, are smart. You've booked your trip for a breezy Tuesday in mid-April.
Perfect timing.
The next real test is the physical act of arriving. and managing the immediate culture shock that hits you.
Because the logistics of arrival act as a sort of filter. Assuming the starting point is Hanoi, the journey requires about 4 hours of transit.
Okay, 4 hours. What are the options?
There are several tiers of friction available, depending entirely on your budget. The baseline tourist shuttle bus from Hanoi's Old Quarter costs between $12.50 and $17.
And what does that include?
That handles the road journey to the coast, and it bundles in the speedboat or ferry transfer across to the island.
Okay, so less than $20 for the whole trip. Not bad. But what if you want a slightly more insulated experience?
The VIP limousine buses run $15 to $17, offering significant legroom and a much quieter cabin.
And if you just have the cash and simply want to make the logistics vanish entirely?
A private car transfer costs $70 to $90 per vehicle. It completely removes the friction of waiting for 30 other people to load their backpacks, and it handles the door-to-door transfer seamlessly.
That's pretty reasonable for a private car. Now, alternatively, if your itinerary already has you in the coastal industrial city of Haiphong, there is a public ferry, right?
Yes, it costs $6 and takes 90 minutes.
Let's put you, the listener, right there on the deck of that 90-minute ferry.
Wow.
Because the approach to Cat Ba is deeply cinematic.
It's beautiful.
You are leaning against the rail, and you see these massive, jagged limestone peaks pushing straight out of this heavy, deep green water on both sides of the channel.
It really feels grand.
And the air smells like this sharp mix of ocean salt and the heavy diesel fumes from the local fishing fleet cutting across your wake.
That diesel smell is very distinct.
It is. And as you get closer, drifting down from the hillsides above the port, you catch the sweet scent of frangipani flowers from the guest houses. It is intoxicating. It feels like stepping into an old novel.
It is a profound sensory transition from the mainland. But the moment the ferry drops its ramp at the port, that natural romance violently collides with modern reality.
It hits you like a truck.
Literally. The acoustic assault hits you first. Cat Ba Town operates almost entirely on motorbikes, and the port area is a swirling vortex of organized vehicular chaos.
Which introduces what the sources call the waterfront illusion.
The waterfront illusion?
That beautiful romantic vision of the limestone peaks and the fragrant flowers just shatters the second you look at the town itself.
The waterfront illusion is a really predictable phenomenon in global tourism. It happens in the Mediterranean, it happens in the Caribbean, and it has happened on Cat Ba.
How does it work?
Developers understand that tired, overwhelmed tourists dragging heavy luggage will simply stop at the first prominent building they see.
Because they just want to put their bags down.
Exactly. Consequently, the prime real estate right on the water has been completely paved over into an ugly strip of concrete hotel blocks, neon signs, and grossly overpriced seafood joints.
There is zero architectural charm. It looks like a generic, slightly run-down strip mall that just happens to face a world-class bay.
It's quite jarring.
If you get off that boat expecting a sleepy, romantic fishing hamlet, the disappointment is going to be immediate and heavy. You are going to wonder if you made a huge mistake coming here.
But the crucial insight to survive that initial disappointment is knowing that the romantic fishing village actually still exists.
It does. It hasn't been entirely paved over.
No, it has just retreated inland, hiding from the lazy tourist foot traffic.
And the fix is wonderfully simple. You literally turn your back to the water, and you walk 10 minutes inland and slightly uphill. You head for the Hung Sun neighborhood.
The atmosphere changes almost block by block as you walk up that hill.
It's like a physical portal. The neon signs fade out. The towering concrete blocks give way to narrow, winding lanes.
You start seeing actual local life.
You see local faux stalls with tiny plastic stools where generations of a family are sitting together eating breakfast. You see laundry strung across balconies, cats sleeking on warm stone walls.
The air smells like simmering broth instead of exhaust.
It feels grounded. It feels real. And the best part is realizing this costs absolutely nothing.
That willingness to walk 10 minutes inland, to push past the obvious convenient facade, is the exact psychological mindset you need to navigate Cat Bay's highly specific logistical traps.
Because the island's microeconomy is heavily rigged.
It is entirely rigged to separate the uninformed tourist from their money through convenience.
So let's dissect these traps, because our sources highlight 3 specific mechanical systems designed to catch you out in 2026. These are not vague travel warnings. These are active economic strategies.
Let's start with trap number 1.
Trap number 1, the Catco Beach construction trap.
The visual marketing for Cat Ba relies heavily on Catco 1 and Catco 2. These are the famous, incredibly photogenic beaches nestled directly against the sheer limestone cliffs.
The brochures show perfect white sand, hammocks, and serene sunsets.
But if you show up with your towel and your book in 2026, the reality is starkly different.
What's going on there right now?
Both CATCO 1 and CATCO 2 are currently functioning as active construction zones, and the sources indicate this will persist right through the summer of 2026.
Oh, wow.
CATCO 1 has heavy infrastructure work carving up its northern edge. CATCO 2 is partially restricted due to a major upgrade of the resort directly adjacent to the sand.
So instead of a serene paradise, you get construction fencing, the beep of reversing dump trucks, and a tiny, crowded patch of usable sand.
It's awful. You can technically still take the Instagram photo if you angle your camera perfectly to crop out the excavator, but the actual physical experience of relaxing is entirely ruined.
You can't unhear a dump truck, so what is the solution?
The solution requires that same mindset we just discussed. Keep walking.
Right.
Do not stop at the first two beaches simply because the signs point there. Follow the headland path for another 10 minutes, wrapping further around the cliff, and you arrive at CATCO 3.
CATCO 3, the Savior Beach.
It truly is the honest beach experience right now.
Yeah.
It is currently unaffected by the heavy construction. There is a small entry fee of 30,000 dong.
Which is a little over $1.
Exactly. But that fee, combined with the extra physical effort required to reach it, acts as a natural filter.
It keeps the crowds away.
The sand is cleaner, the water is calmer, the crowds are thinner, and the limestone backdrop is just as spectacular.
That brings us to trap number 2, which honestly feels a bit malicious if you get caught in it. The boat tour weather scam.
To understand this trap, we have to look at the power dynamics of the local tour industry on the island. The single most important activity on Cat Ba is the Lan Ha Bay boat tour.
That's why everyone goes.
But the mid-range and budget operators utilize a highly protective, strict no-refund policy when it comes to weather cancellations.
Because the Port Authority is the ultimate boss here. If they see high winds or a storm system, they ground the entire fleet for safety.
And when that happens, the tour operator refuses to hand your cash back.
They just keep it.
Instead of a refund, they issue you a voucher to take the exact same tour on a subsequent date. From their perspective, it protects their revenue stream against acts of God.
But consider the lived reality of a traveler with a tight itinerary. If you scheduled your boat tour for the morning of your final day on the island, and your bus back to Hanoi departs at 3:00 p.m.,
a voucher for tomorrow is completely worthless.
you are standing in a booking office holding a piece of paper worth $40 for an island you are leaving in 3 hours.
And the operator just shrugs, pockets your cash, and you go home having never seen the bay.
It is a crushing end to a trip, especially for those caught in the unpredictable August weather.
The defense against this is purely strategic scheduling. You must treat your itinerary as a risk management tool.
How do you do that?
Book your boat tour for day 2 or day 3 of your trip. Never schedule it for your arrival day because transit delays happen, and never ever schedule it for your departure day. You must build in a 24-hour buffer.
So if it rains on Tuesday and the port closes, you simply redeem the voucher on Wednesday, the storm passes, and you still get your experience.
And when you are initially handing over your money to book, you must be explicit in your questioning.
What should you ask?
Do not ask a vague question like, what happens if it rains? Ask specifically, what is your weather cancellation policy?
And if they say they only do vouchers?
If they state they only offer vouchers, you must clarify, can I explicitly transfer this booking to tomorrow morning without penalty if today is grounded by the Port Authority?
You have to get it verbally confirmed. Now, the sources do note a slight exception here.
The private charters.
Right. If you book a private charter, which runs about $95 to $120 for a private day boat for 2 people, the captains are generally much more flexible.
You are dealing directly with the owner of the vessel, not a massive booking agency with rigid corporate policies, so they will often work with you to reschedule or refund if the weather turns.
That direct relationship fundamentally changes the economic dynamic.
It does. Which segues perfectly into trap number 3. This is perhaps the most fascinating trap from a purely economic perspective.
Trap number 3, the Port Tuk-Tuk Commission trap. Oh, this one is brilliantly sneaky because it preys on your relief.
It really does.
You finally get off the ferry. You are wearing a heavy backpack. You are covered in a thin layer of sweat. You are disoriented by the noise, and suddenly you are greeted by this massive fleet of tuk-tuk and motorbike taxi drivers.
And they are smiling broadly.
They're incredibly helpful. They're grabbing your bags, and they offer to run you to a guest house for an unbelievably cheap fare. Sometimes they even offer to do it completely for free.
And this is where we have to pause and look at the microeconomy.
Why would they do that?
In a hyper-competitive tourist market, why would a driver burn their own fuel and time to transport you for free?
Because they're not working for the fare, they're working for the commission.
The driver acts as a funnel.
Exactly. They deliver you to a specific hotel or guest house that they have an established relationship with.
And the owner of that guest house sees the driver bring in a live customer and quietly slips the driver a cash commission, usually around 100,000 to 200,000 dong per room booked.
But the critical question is, where does the guest house owner get the margins to pay that commission? They extract it directly from you. It is the invisible tax.
To recover the cost of paying the driver, the guest house immediately inflates your room rate for the first 2 nights of your stay.
So if you accept that free ride, you pay for it later.
Travelers who accept that ride and allow the driver to dictate where they sleep end up paying 40 to 80% more per night than the actual market rate for that exact same room.
80% more. And the true genius of it is that you never realize you've been scammed.
You have no idea.
The driver shakes your hand and wishes you a good trip. The hotel staff is warm and welcoming. The bill quietly reconciles at checkout. You leave the island thinking you scored an amazing deal on transport, completely unaware that you overpaid by $50 for your bed.
It is vital to understand that this is not a malicious, violent crime. It is a highly efficient, hyper-localized capitalist ecosystem. The incentives for the driver and the hotel owner are perfectly aligned.
The system functions smoothly.
The only entity that loses value is the uninformed tourist who prioritizes immediate convenience over structural understanding.
So how do we break the ecosystem?
Preparation and posture. Have your accommodation booked in advance, or at the absolute minimum, have the specific name and address of a guest house written down on your phone.
And when you arrive?
When you step off the ferry, walk with a deliberate purpose. Walk directly through the port, running the gauntlet of drivers offering free rides. Do not stop.
Just keep moving.
Get out to the main road, completely away from the ferry gates, and hail a normal passing motorbike taxi.
You want a driver who is in transit, not one who is stationed at the port waiting for prey. What should that normal, honest ride cost?
The standard fare is 20,000 to 30,000 dong to get anywhere within Cat Ba Town.
About $1.
If a driver offers to do it for significantly less than that, you are immediately back in commission territory. Pay the 30,000 dong up front, dictate exactly where you are going, and you save yourself a massive, invisible markup on your accommodation.
By avoiding just those 3 traps, you are saving significant cash and preserving your sanity. And having your budget optimized means we can finally dive into the actual economics of existing on the island. Let's look at beds and bowls.
The accommodation landscape on Cat Ba is divided into fairly rigid tiers, but one fundamental rule governs all of them.
Avoid the waterfront.
The Cat Ba Town Center waterfront strip must be avoided. It is entirely composed of markup with 0 corresponding character.
The view tax.
Exactly. The further you physically distance yourself from that specific concrete strip, the higher the value proposition becomes.
Let's start with the budget traveler, the backpacker tier.
The value available here is genuinely phenomenal. Consider places like the Cat Ba Pod Hostel and Rooftop Bar.
Okay, what does that cost?
You are securing a dorm bed for approximately $6 a night. But that $6 doesn't just buy a mattress. It buys access to a rooftop bar offering sweeping, unobstructed views of the bay.
$6 for a sunset rooftop view over a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
It's unbelievable.
You cannot find that ratio of price to visual reward in many places on Earth anymore.
It is a massive win for the budget traveler. Another highly reliable option is the Cat Ba Sunrise Hostel. Dorm beds run $8 to $12. And if you want privacy, an ensuite private room is $18 to $22.
And where are these located?
The strategic key here is that both of these options are located on the uphill streets, a block or 2 removed from the intense noise and exhaust of the port.
Perfect. What if my hostel dorm days are firmly behind me? I'm traveling with a partner, we want a nice room, but we aren't looking to empty our bank accounts.
The mid-range sweet spot sits comfortably between $38 and $72 a night.
Any specific recommendations?
Noble House Cat Ba is a standout in this category, priced at $38 to $58. It is situated on the quieter eastern edge of the waterfront.
So you get the view, but not the noise.
Exactly. You get the actual sea views without the worst of the localized noise pollution. The rooms are surprisingly large, the Wi-Fi is reliable, and breakfast is bundled into the rate.
And the sources highlight a fantastic operational hack for Noble House.
Oh, the tour bookings.
Yeah. The staff there will actually book your Lan Ha Bay boat tours for you at the honest local rate, rather than charging the inflated tourist commission prices that the street-level agencies push.
Having a hotel that acts as an honest broker is incredibly valuable.
Are there other mid-range options?
Other solid mid-range contenders include the Cat Bad Dream Hotel near the town center for $40 to $65, or the Holiday Cat Ba Hotel at $45 to $72.
Holiday Cat Ba is good for what?
It's excellent if you want to be within walking distance of the night market, but physically insulated from the seafront chaos.
Let's escalate to the top tiers. Families looking for space and luxury travelers looking for pure comfort.
For families, the standout recommendation is the Cat Ba Flamingo Resort. Its primary advantage is geography. It sits at the northern end of the island, entirely removed from the town's active construction zones.
Which is absolutely critical. You do not want to be trying to put a toddler down for an afternoon nap while a jackhammer is tearing up the sidewalk next door.
Precisely. A family room at the Flamingo runs $120 to $185 a night.
What do you get for that?
It provides private beach access, an organized activity desk to occupy older children, and a pool infrastructure that functions reliably.
Is there an alternative for families?
An alternative is the Nam Cat Island Resort, priced at $90 to $140 a night. This offers a much more remote, isolated feel.
So you're off the main island?
Yes. It is perfect for families who want immersion in the island nature without engaging with the chaotic town center at all. Furthermore, they operate their own daily boat tours directly from the resort for $22 an adult, which is a very fair going rate.
And for the traveler who wants absolute, uncompromised luxury?
This is where expectation management becomes critical. The pinnacle of the island is the Flamingo's Cat Ba Resort luxury tier. It commands between $180 and $280 a night.
What's the physical product like?
The physical product is stunning. Panoramic views of the bay, overwater bungalow-style room designs, and breakfast served on a terrace overlooking the ancient limestone karsts.
But I sense a major caveat approaching.
The caveat is the service culture. It is not the Maldives.
Okay, what does that mean?
The service level reflects what the industry calls Vietnam luxury pricing, rather than a flawless international five-star standard. The human infrastructure and training on the island simply haven't caught up to the caliber of the scenery yet.
So the water pressure in the shower might fluctuate wildly, or room service might take 45 minutes longer than they promised.
Exactly. The polish isn't quite there. But if you calibrate your expectations, it actually represents an incredible arbitrage opportunity.
Because it's still so cheap compared to the rest of the world.
You are paying a fraction of what you would pay for that exact same geological view in Tahiti. You book the Flamingos for the view and the isolation, and you ensure you book it at least 6 weeks ahead if you are traveling in peak season.
We've secured the beds. Now we have to talk about bowls. The economics of food on Cat Ba are fascinating because the waterfront illusion we talked about earlier hits your wallet incredibly hard here.
It really does. The single most consequential culinary decision you make on Cat Ba is where you physically sit down to eat seafood.
The main port road, right?
That glowing row of brightly lit restaurants directly facing the docked boats operates on a massive premium. Their seafood prices are routinely 3 to 5 times the rate of the inland restaurants.
3 to 5 times. Let's give the listener a visceral example to ground this. The classic bowl of crab noodle soup.
It is the perfect metric. If you pull up a chair at one of those waterfront joints, a standard bowl of crab noodle soup will cost you between 120,000 and 180,000 dong.
Now, what happens if I take that 10-minute walk inland?
If you walk away from the water to Nguyen Street and you pull up a tiny plastic stool at an open-air local joint, that exact same bowl of soup will cost you 35,000 to 50,000 dong.
I really want to drill down on this point for the listener. We are not talking about a sacrifice in quality to save money. We are talking about the exact same rich, complex broth recipe.
It is the exact same local crab, almost certainly pulled from the water by the exact same fishermen that very morning.
The meat is just as sweet. The noodles are just as fresh. The only difference is the geographical address of the table you were sitting at.
That massive price gap exists entirely because the waterfront restaurants are levying a heavy tax on lazy tourist foot traffic.
It is a pure, unadulterated view tax.
If you are seeking honest, deeply flavorful local food, Nguyen Gok Street and the labyrinth of market lanes behind Cat Baytown are your culinary havens.
Are there any specific spots we should mention?
There is a specific spot called Komga Bariek near the Central Market. They serve arguably the best chicken rice on the island for 40,000 dong a bowl.
Less than $2.
The ingredients are constantly turning over, so it is always fresh. And the tables are perpetually packed with locals, which is the universal, infallible sign of high quality in any country.
And if you just want a quick, cheap bite before a hike, the banh mi street carts operating just outside the morning market are phenomenal. 15 to 20,000 dong for a crispy baguette loaded with pate and fresh herbs.
Less than $1 for a great sandwich.
What about a proper dinner?
A full, elaborate, grilled seafood dinner. We are talking fresh, whole fish, prawns, steamed clams, rice, and morning glory vegetables, eaten at a proper local grill removed from the port, will run you 150,000 to 250,000 dong per person.
So $10.
If you attempt to order that exact same feast on the waterfront strip, your bill will skyrocket to between 400,000 and 700,000 dong.
The strategy is undeniable. Skip the neon signs, follow where the locals are walking, and embrace the plastic stool. Now, what about basic groceries? If I'm staying in an Airbnb or I just want to self-cater my water and snacks,
The Vinmart Plus, located on the main town road, is your most reliable, frictionless supermarket. The prices are bar-coded, fixed, and entirely fair.
how much is water?
1.5 liters of bottled water is 7,000 dong. Local beers like Bia Hanoi or Bia Viet are 12 to 18,000 dong a can. Packets of instant noodles are 8,000.
But wait, should I buy my fresh fruit at the supermarket?
Absolutely not. Never pay wrapped, refrigerated supermarket prices for fruit when the vibrant morning market is a 3-minute walk away.
What are the market prices like?
At the market stalls, fresh, heavy watermelons, ripe mangoes, and dragon fruit will run you 25 to 45,000 dong per kilo.
Which brings up a highly practical psychological question for you, the listener. If I am standing at that morning market looking at a vendor, she tells me a kilo of mangoes is 40,000 dong. Do I bargain? Is that expected, or am I just being a rude, cheap tourist?
The cultural etiquette surrounding bargaining is deeply specific and contextual. In the morning market, bargaining is entirely expected. It is the baseline of normal social interaction.
It's not rude at all.
It isn't an argument. It is a transactional dance. You should also bargain aggressively when negotiating a multi-day motorbike rental.
But what if I try to bargain at a restaurant?
You must never do that. If a restaurant establishment hands you a physically printed menu with prices listed, those prices are absolute.
So no haggling over noodles.
Attempting to haggle over the price of a bowl of pho is considered incredibly rude and causes a massive loss of face for both you and the owner.
However, there is one massive, dangerous caveat when it comes to dining. The live seafood weight trap.
Ah, yes. The easiest way to accidentally blow your daily budget in one meal.
Explain this one, because it catches so many people.
When you are ordering live seafood, like a swimming fish from a tank or a live crab, it is almost universally priced by weight per 100 grams, not as a flat fee per item.
And the trap is sprung when you simply point to a fish in the tank and say, I'll take that one.
Because you have no idea what that fish actually weighs.
Exactly. You could point to a fish that weighs 3 kilos and suddenly your dinner costs $60.
You must actively ask the vendor to pull the fish out, place it on the scale in front of you, calculate the total price based on that specific weight, and you must verbally confirm that final monetary number before they take it to the kitchen to cook it.
If you skip that step, your final bill might be double or triple what you implicitly expected.
It happens all the time.
Okay, another quick cultural nuance our sources mention regards footwear.
Right. Taking off your shoes.
If you are entering a private home, a temple, or even the common reception area of a smaller family-run guest house, and you see a pile of sandals stacked by the front door, you must take your shoes off.
It is a non-negotiable sign of basic respect for the cleanliness of the space.
And regarding tipping,
Tipping is not structurally expected in Vietnam, but leaving a small note of 10 to 20,000 dong on the table after an exceptionally good local meal is highly appreciated and leaves a great impression.
with your budget fully optimized, because you aren't bleeding cash on fake tuk-tuk rides, waterfront view taxes, or unweighed fish, you can focus your capital and your energy on the experiences that actually validate Cat Bay as a world-class destination.
Let's talk about the experiences. What actually lives up to the massive hype and what falls flat?
Let's start with the peak moments.
The absolute zenith of the Cat Bay experience, the singular moment that justifies the flights and the ferry rides, happens out on the water. Specifically, the kayaking excursion into Bright Cave, or Hang Seng Toi, during a Lan Ha Bay day trip.
Describe this mechanically. Put the listener inside that kayak.
Your main tour boat will cut its heavy diesel engine about 300 meters away from the sheer cliff face. The crew lowers small two-person kayaks into the water. You climb down.
Okay, I'm in the water.
The water here is incredibly still, sheltered from the open ocean currents. You paddle toward the solid limestone wall, and as you get close, you see this low-ceilinged passage opening up right at the waterline.
You actually have to physically duck your head and shoulders to paddle through this dark floating tunnel.
It is deeply unnerving for about 30 seconds until you emerge on the other side.
It sounds intensely claustrophobic, the weight of millions of tons of rock right above your head.
It is. But you paddle out of the darkness of the tunnel, and suddenly you are inside a completely sealed, hidden marine lagoon.
Wow.
The limestone walls rise straight out of the emerald water, extending 80 vertical meters straight up into the sky. It forms a perfect, towering cylinder of ancient rock around you.
So you're entirely enclosed by rock.
The sky is reduced to just a distant circle of blue far overhead.
The sensory deprivation in a space like that must be overwhelming.
It is profound. Because you are surrounded by 80 meters of solid rock, all external sound is blocked. There are no engine noises. There are no waves crashing.
Just silence.
There is no other tourist infrastructure in any direction, just utterly still water and complete heavy quiet. It is arguably the most purely extraordinary 20 minutes of natural beauty available at this price point anywhere in Southeast Asia.
That sounds genuinely transcendent. What is the second major highlight?
Cannon Fort at golden hour. This appeals to a different sensibility.
What is Cannon Fort?
It is an old concrete anti-aircraft gun platform located at the very top of a peak overlooking the town, originally utilized heavily during the American War.
Does it cost anything to go up?
It costs a nominal 40,000 dong to enter, but it requires a steep, sweaty 25-minute walk up from Cat Bat Town.
So it filters out the lazy. You have to earn the vantage point.
You do. But if you calculate your hike to arrive at the summit right around 5:00 p.m., the visual reward is unmatched.
Golden hour.
The lowering sun turns the light into this rich, heavy, cinematic gold, and because of the fort's supreme elevation and geographical position on the peninsula, you can see both massive bay systems simultaneously.
You can see Halong and Lan Ha.
Yes. You look to the north and you see the crowded, busy waters of Ha Long Bay with all the massive, multi-story cruise ships. You turn your head to the south and you see the pristine, empty, silent expanse of Lan Ha Bay.
The sources mention that every single travel writer and photographer who comes to the island takes the exact same wide-angle photo from that specific spot.
They do. And you should take it too. It is one of those rare instances where the sheer scale of the view entirely earns the cliché.
I love that concept. The view earns the cliché. Okay, what is the third major highlight? Because this one pivots away from natural geology into heavy human history.
It is a historical site known as Hospital Cave, or Hang Quan Wai. This is an extraordinary, sprawling, 3-level underground hospital and tunnel system.
And it's actually in a cave.
It was built directly inside a natural limestone cave cavern during the 1960s by the Viet Cong.
An entire fully functioning hospital hidden inside a mountain.
Yes. Bomb-proof wards, surgical operating theaters, ventilation shafts, briefing rooms, all meticulously carved and poured into the living rock. The entry fee is 40,000 dong, which includes a local guide, and it takes about 45 minutes to explore the labyrinth.
When I was reading the notes on this, I immediately thought about how we typically treat historical trauma sites in the West.
It's very different.
Right. If this cave were in Europe or America, it would be heavily curated and sanitized. You would be walking on slightly elevated, polite wooden boardwalks. There would be soft, dramatic track lighting illuminating the corner.
And glass everywhere.
Exactly. Everything would be safely cordoned off behind thick plexiglass, and you'd have an audio guide whispering sterile facts into your ear.
The Western Museum experience. Hospital Cave is the absolute antithesis of that. It is completely unfiltered.
It is incredibly raw. It is visceral. You are walking directly on the damp, uneven stone floors. The rusty, skeletal metal hospital beds are still sitting exactly where they were, pushed decades ago.
It's haunting.
You walk into the main operating theater, and the concrete slab where surgeries were performed under bombardment is just right there in front of you. You can literally feel the heavy weight of the history trapped in the humidity of the cave air.
It is a powerful, unsanitized look at wartime ingenuity, desperation, and survival. And unlike the beaches, it is rarely crowded.
It is an absolute must-visit for anyone interested in history or architecture. But maintaining the promise of this brutally honest guide, we also have to dissect the elements that fall flat.
We've already heavily discussed the biggest aesthetic disappointment, which is the ugly concrete seafront of Cat Ba Town.
The waterfront illusion. You show up wanting a quaint fishing village, and you get a loud, dusty strip mall. What else misses the mark?
The Cat Ba National Park itself is a distinctly mixed bag. The interior jungle is genuinely beautiful and ecologically vital, but the human infrastructure supporting it is lacking.
In what way?
The trail signage is notably poor, leading to frequent confusion. More importantly, the physical conditions of the paths deteriorate instantly and significantly with any rainfall, rapidly turning into slippery, rutted, dangerous messes.
And what about the wildlife aspect? Because a major draw for ecotourists is the hope of seeing the famous Cat Ba langur. It is one of the rarest primates on the entire planet, isn't it?
It is critically endangered and incredibly rare, and that biological reality is exactly why casual visitors will not see it.
So no chance of spotting one on a hike.
Spotting a langur on a standard self-guided hike through the park is effectively impossible. They live high up in the most inaccessible, jagged crags of the limestone peaks, far away from the noisy tourist trails.
So if a traveler is walking the main paths with their binoculars, hoping for a magical David Attenborough moment where a rare monkey swings down from the canopy, they're going to leave severely disappointed.
Entirely disappointed. If seeing a langur is a non-negotiable bucket list requirement for your trip, you cannot simply show up and hike.
What do you have to do?
You must organize a highly specialized conservation guide through the official Cat Ba Langur Conservation Project, and due to demand and the small number of guides, you need to book them at least 2 full weeks in advance.
That is a crucial reality check. And while exploring these raw, unfiltered sites like the caves and the jungle is thrilling, it requires a very grounded, realistic look at safety.
Let's talk about safety.
Who is this island actually built for? Because the infrastructure we've described, the rutted trails, the dark caves, the chaotic port, sounds a bit physically demanding.
Let's establish the baseline first. Cat Ba Island is remarkably, incredibly safe when it comes to intentional crime.
Those are no muggings.
Vietnam's national crime rate against tourists is low, and Cat Ba has a minimal record of serious incidents like muggings or assaults. You are not going to get robbed walking around the town center at night.
So the risks aren't criminal. They are entirely environmental and logistical.
Precisely. And the absolute #1 cause of tourist injury on Cat Ba, by a massive statistical margin, is motorbike accidents.
I can completely see why. You have an environment where the entire local economy runs on 2 wheels.
And then you inject hundreds of Western tourists into that mix.
Tourists who perhaps haven't ridden a scooter since they were in college, or maybe have never ridden one at all. They rent a bike because it looks fun and easy, completely suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect of false confidence.
And they take that false confidence and try to navigate roads leading up into the national park that are narrow, heavily rutted by construction trucks, and deceptively steep.
Plus, the bikes themselves aren't exactly top tier, right?
The actual rental bikes provided to tourists by the street-side shops are often poorly maintained.
So what is the strict safety protocol here for the listener?
Before you even hand over your passport or your cash at the rental shop, physically test the brakes yourself. Check the tread on the tires to ensure they aren't completely bald.
And when you're driving?
When you are actually on the road, drive at exactly half the speed you normally would, especially when descending the hills. Do not ride the unlit mountain roads after dark under any circumstances.
And what about helmets?
Most critically, when you rent the bike, demand a full-face helmet. The shops usually try to hand you those flimsy, open-face plastic shells that look like baseball caps.
Those do nothing in a crash.
A proper, full-face helmet is always available for an extra 10,000 dong, which is less than 50 cents. Demand it and use it.
50 cents to protect your skull from a concrete road, that is the definition of a no-brainer. What about safety in the water? You mentioned jellyfish earlier.
Yes, marine stingers are highly prevalent in Cat Bay's bays from late July through September, peaking heavily in the heat of August.
How bad are the stings?
Depending on the specific species drifting through the bay, the stings can range from highly painful to medically severe.
And I am guessing those construction-affected Cat Cove beaches do not have a highly trained team of lifeguards on duty, with first aid kits and vinegar sprays ready to rush into the surf.
They absolutely do not. There are no visible lifeguard patrols. If you choose to swim in the ocean during August, you need to manage your own risk.
How do you do that?
Wear a full-sleeve rash guard, stay in the shallower, clearer areas closer to the sand, and absolutely avoid swimming at dawn or dusk because that is the exact window when the jellyfish rise closer to the surface to feed.
Let's analyze some specific traveler profiles. How does this chaotic, slightly rugged environment treat a solo female traveler?
Cat Ba is widely considered a highly safe and comfortable destination for solo female travelers. The hostel scene, particularly those rooftop places we highlighted earlier, is intensely sociable.
It's easy to meet people.
Very easy. The architecture of the hostels forces interaction, making it incredibly easy to find companions to split private boat tours with or share a dinner. Walking around the main town at night to get food is safe.
But there is one persistent psychological annoyance our sources flag for solo travelers, right?
Yes, the commission-based hustlers down at the port that we discussed in trap number 3.
They can be aggressive.
When a solo traveler arrives off the ferry, male tuk-tuk drivers and aggressive boat tour agents can single them out. They can be quite relentless with their pitches, sometimes physically following a traveler for 50 to 100 meters down the street, trying to verbally wear them down and secure a booking.
Which can feel intensely intimidating and overwhelming, especially if you're jet-lagged and just want to find your bed. What is the most effective tactical response to that pressure?
The defense is entirely behavioral. Maintain your normal, brisk walking pace. Do not stop walking to hear their pitch. Do not make eye contact.
Don't engage.
Give one clear, firm, polite, no thank you, and then say absolutely nothing else. Do not engage in a conversation or try to explain why you don't need a ride.
Just walk.
Once they realize you are a hardened, prepared target and not a confused newcomer, they will immediately abandon you and pivot to the next tourist stepping off the boat.
Solid, actionable advice. Now, what about families? You mentioned the Flamingo Resort is great, but is the island ecosystem as a whole family-friendly?
It comes down to a strict dividing line based on age. For families with children over the age of 6, Cat Ba is a fantastic adventure.
Over 6 is fine.
Older kids and teenagers will be genuinely mind-blown by climbing around the dark tunnels of Hospital Cave. The Flamingo Resort offers a highly controlled base of operations, and the national park has graded trails, like the Nungu Lam Peak Trail, that a moderately fit family can tackle together in 2 to 3 hours.
For families traveling with infants or toddlers under 6.
It becomes significantly harder to recommend. The logistical friction of the island is simply too high.
Because of the transit.
Getting a tired toddler through a 4-hour bus ride from Hanoi onto a chaotic, noisy ferry and into a town where motorbikes completely dominate the sidewalks and crosswalks is incredibly stressful for a parent. Plus, getting to the quieter beaches requires walking over rocky paths, and the general infrastructure of the town is entirely hostile to strollers.
There is also a very serious medical reality to consider with young, vulnerable kids, right?
Yes. The medical facilities physically located on Cat Ba are highly basic. The local district hospital can handle minor scrapes, dehydration, or a standard stomach bug.
What if it's an emergency?
If a child has a genuine, severe medical emergency, a major allergic reaction, or a bad fall, the protocol requires a 90-minute speedboat evacuation across the open water back to the major hospitals in the city of Haiphong.
90 minutes is a long time in an emergency.
For many parents, accepting that built-in 90-minute delay in emergency pediatric care is an absolute deal-breaker.
Which provides a perfect pivot point. If everything we've just spent the last hour describing, the ferry logistics, the motorbike chaos, the weather traps, the 90-minute medical evac, the aggressive port hustlers, if all of that makes Cat Ba sound like slightly too much work, what are the alternatives?
There are 2 major alternatives.
Where else can you get this kind of sweeping, dramatic scenery without the friction?
The sources outline 2 distinct options, and they offer the exact same aesthetic scenery but with entirely different logistical and economic profiles. The first is the most famous, the Ha Bay Classic Cruise.
This is the VIP stadium show from our earlier analogy.
Exactly. This is custom built for the traveler who wants the iconic, world-famous bay experience but demands absolutely zero self-organized logistics.
You just want to sit back.
You book a 2 or 3 night cruise aboard a mid-range to luxury vessel, companies like Paradise Cruises, Indochina Sails, or Era Cruises.
Well, what does that total lack of friction cost?
You are looking at a commitment of $180 to $380 per person, all inclusive.
So it is significantly more expensive than DIYing it on Catbuy. But what exactly are you buying for that premium?
You are buying complete mental peace. You board a plush, air-conditioned luxury bus in Hanoi. Every single transfer is handled. Your luggage magically appears in your room.
And the food.
All your meals are intricately prepared by an onboard chef. You have a private, mahogany-lined cabin floating on the water, and activities like guided kayaking are seamlessly bundled into the schedule. The experience is highly polished, deeply comfortable, and undeniably visually beautiful.
But the honest trade-off for that comfort is the crowds and the transit time. You'd have been spending up to 12 hours of your 3-day trip just sitting on a bus traversing the highway to get to and from the mainland port.
And when you're out there,
When you are finally out on the water, you are surrounded by hundreds of other massive boats. You don't get the silence. So if you have high capital but low time and you despise planning, take the cruise. But if you value your budget, crave flexibility, and want that quiet, empty Lan Ha Bay acoustic set, Cat Bay wins easily.
the second alternative is fascinating, and it solves the ferry and the ocean problem entirely. Ninh Binh.
I've heard travelers describe Ninh Binh as Ha Long Bay on land.
That is the most accurate visual description possible. Ninh Binh delivers the exact same dramatic, towering karst limestone peak scenery. But instead of jutting aggressively out of the ocean, the peaks rise gently out of a perfectly flat, emerald green river valley completely surrounded by rice paddies.
And because it is firmly attached to the mainland, the logistics are a breeze.
Incredibly easy. It is only a 3-hour direct bus ride south from Hanoi, and the ticket is roughly $4.50. The total daily cost to exist comfortably in Ninh Binh is around $25 to $35.
What do you do there?
You can take a phenomenal serene rowboat circuit through ancient river caves for $5. You can hike up the stone steps to the Mua Cave viewpoint at sunrise, which costs nothing and offers one of the finest panoramic vistas in the entire country.
So if Ninh Binh is cheaper, infinitely easier to get to, and features the exact same geological mountains, why go through the hassle of Kappa at all?
It distills down to one fundamental personal question. How much do you need the ocean?
The ocean is the deciding factor.
The honest, brutal comparison is this. Ninh Binh has vastly better, cheaper local food, incredible flat cycling paths winding through the rice paddies, and stunning ancient temples. But Katbog has the sea.
It has Lan Ha Bay.
It has the rooftop hostels looking over the water. If floating in salt water is a non-negotiable psychological requirement for your vacation, you have to brave the ferry and go to Katba.
I really love that framing. How much do you need the ocean? Okay, let's pull all of these complex threads together into a final synthesis. Let's look at the final verdicts for the different traveler profiles based on the complete 2026 data.
Let's start with a backpacker. The final verdict is a resounding yes, with conditions.
The primary condition being, do not go anywhere near the island in August.
Avoid the summer entirely. But if a backpacker times their visit for the spring or autumn windows, they're operating on a daily budget of $20 to $28.
Which is incredible value.
For that incredibly low price, gaining access to a world-class geological wonder, sleeping in highly social rooftop hostels, and kayaking through the silent majesty of Bright Cave, it is one of the highest value propositions available in all of Southeast Asia.
Just arrive armed with the knowledge of the port hustle, walk straight past the free tuk-tuks, and you will have an incredible budget-friendly adventure.
What about the mid-range couple?
Right, the travelers who have a bit more cash but aren't looking for massive resorts.
Another incredibly strong yes. This demographic is arguably the absolute sweet spot for Katba's current infrastructure.
How does their trip look?
If a couple visits in April, stays at an inland place like Noble House, and pools their money to charter their own private Lan Ha Bay boat for $100, they're looking at a daily budget of $45 to $65 per person.
And they get privacy and great food.
They achieve incredible privacy out on the water, they eat outstanding local seafood away from the noisy seafront, and they build a highly memorable trip that feels like a massive steal compared to equivalent Western prices.
Okay, now for the tricky demographic. The luxury traveler. Are they actually going to be happy here?
The verdict here is yes, with conditions. If a luxury traveler expects the Flamingos Resort to operate with the flawless, invisible, telepathic service of a Swiss hotel in Geneva, they will be deeply frustrated.
Because it's Vietnam luxury.
The service is incredibly warm but can be highly inconsistent. The condition for success lies entirely in how you utilize the resort.
You use the resort for the massive bed and the stunning view, not as your entire enclosed world.
Precisely. Sleep in the beautiful air-conditioned room, eat the buffet breakfast on the terrace overlooking the karsts, but then leave. Charter a private boat for the day.
And for dinner.
At night, abandon the resort restaurant, go down the hill to Nguyen Ngoc Street, pull up a plastic stool, and eat a genuine, chaotic, incredibly fresh local seafood dinner. That specific contrast, sleeping in high-end luxury but engaging with the raw, loud authenticity of the island, that contrast delivers an amazing experience.
And finally, the digital nomad. Because every single beach town on Earth right now wants to market itself as the next great nomad hub.
For the long-term digital nomad looking to base themselves somewhere for an entire month, the answer is an unambiguous NO.
Really? Why is such a harsh rejection?
The technological infrastructure simply isn't there in 2026. The Wi-Fi is deeply inconsistent. It might run fast in your hotel lobby at 10 a.m., but it drops constantly in the cafes.
And out on the water.
There's absolutely zero cellular signal in the national park or on the boats. There are no proper dedicated co-working spaces, and the budget accommodations frequently suffer from rolling power fluctuations during peak demand. You cannot reliably run client Zoom calls from Cat Ba.
But I'm guessing there's a short-term exception.
Yes,
Yeah.
as a short-term reward, yes.
Sure.
If you are a nomad heavily based in the grinding city chaos of Hanoi or Hoi An, Cat Ba is the perfect 5 to 10 day retreat.
You go there to unplug.
You go there to shut your laptop entirely. You go float in the quiet of Lan Ha Bay, you reset your central nervous system, and then you get back on the ferry to the city to actually work. Treat it as a pure vacation, not an exotic office.
Pulling all of these threads together leaves us with a truly fascinating, slightly tense picture. Cat Ba Island in 2026 is a destination caught right in the middle of its own intense, rapid evolution.
It is the defining structural tension of the island right now. It is wrestling with its own popularity.
My core takeaway from diving into all these sources is that Cat Bay is a high-reward destination, but it is one that demands your active, intelligent participation. It does not spoon-feed you the magic.
You have to earn it.
You do. But if you're willing to do your homework, if you're willing to walk 10 minutes inland past the ugly concrete hotels, if you are smart enough to dodge the July crowds and brave the chaotic ferry, you can essentially extract a $500 world-class geological experience for $30.
It heavily rewards the engaged, prepared traveler. But I think there is a broader, perhaps more provocative question we have to leave the listener mulling over today.
The future of the island.
We've talked extensively about the ticking clock. We've analyzed the massive 4.75 million visitor target for 2026. As the concrete mixers continue to run at dawn to build more hotels, and as that ugly waterfront strip inevitably expands outward to capture more money, we have to ask a difficult question.
What's that?
Is Cat Ba destined to inevitably become a carbon copy of the overpriced, overcrowded Ha Long Bay it currently serves as an alternative to?
That is the great fear of every travel writer, isn't it? The place you love becomes the place you leave.
It is the brutal life cycle of modern global tourism. The digital tectonic plates shift, the influencers arrive, and the landscape changes. How long does a back door to paradise actually stay open once the rest of the world finds the key and starts pouring through?
Once the algorithm decides it's time and the search traffic surges into the millions, how long before the quiet acoustic set in the private courtyard gets permanently shut down? And they just build another massive stadium over it. It's something to think about deeply the next time you see a perfect, glowing emerald green photo pop up on your feed. You always have to wonder what massive machinery is operating just outside the frame of that picture. That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.